an issue now arising out of the Biden administration, more attacks on Israel that they kind of want you to not pay attention to because they try to say, well, this is not really about Israel. This is about other parts that we might disagree with Israel on. But again, when you see the rise in anti-Semitism, you even saw some of these protests over the weekend by Nazis outside synagogues. And again, some of this, the fact that that was in Atlanta. The number one group who suffers hate crimes, which is a much smaller percentage of people, is still the Jewish communities. We work to make sure they can have their Second Amendment rights at places of worship in New York because of that. And we've seen the attacks that have occurred on synagogues. But so when the administration does this, I think unfortunately it encourages a lot of those anti-Israel elements, both from the Ilhan Omars to the neo-Nazis.
Yeah, correct. So here's what you have. We've got an office, of course, in Jerusalem. Jeff Ballabon heads that up. He's back in the United States for a few days in New York and is going to talk with us about this because under the Trump administration, scientific endeavors, which includes agricultural science, and there's a lot of things, we're being shared with Israel as its full state, which includes Judea and Samaria, which is the biblical Israel as well. And under the Obama administration, they would not do anything with those, what they called territories, we call Judea and Samaria. The Biden administration has now put that back in place. Jeff, tell us what this means.
Thanks, Jay. I am back here, and part of it is meeting also in Washington because this is another dramatic step by the Biden administration it's actually an anti-Semitic attack on the state of Israel. I mean, it's purely anti-Semitic. It says that it's a boycott of scientific cooperation, not with people who live in Judea and Samaria, but only with Jews, right? That we will not. We are happy to work with researching in Wuhan with the Chinese. The Biden administration is defending that. But we will not. America will not work with Jews who live in Judea and Samaria. It's unconscionable. It's an attack not only on the sovereignty and legitimacy of the state of Israel as a Jewish state, it's an attack on all Jews everywhere by denying our ability to live and work where we please.
It's a punishment for operating in territory that is your territory. That would be like saying, Washington, D.C., we're taking you out and we're not going to allow you because you're not a fully recognized state. I mean, this is absurd. But I think it's important for people to understand when we talk about Judea and Samaria, Jeff, what are we talking about?
We're talking about Judea and Samaria. Thanks for mentioning that, Jay. We're talking about Israel. We're talking about the biblical heartland. We're talking about the historical heartland. We're talking about the vast majority of Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people for thousands of years, the capital of the state of Israel since its founding. So we are talking about, and I spend a lot of time, as you know, on behalf of ACLJ in Judea and Samaria, in those communities. It's a hugely growing environment. People from all around the state of Israel are moving there. They're building new highways there. It's a wonderful area for expansion. And the Biden administration is doing everything in its power to destroy Jewish life there. Meanwhile, they're encouraging and in some ways funding up Arabs illegally to grab more and more territory to try to create their own state there on the Jewish homeland's core biblical heartland.
I think what's important to point out here too, and Jeff, you said it. I mean, I don't like making the comparison because Israel doesn't deserve that. They're a strong ally of the United States. Even when this happens, they're willing to stand with us and be on the front lines of the war on terror that continues to this day, even when we're not experiencing it as much, thankfully, and maybe domestically here, and the world's not, in Western Europe's not. They are on the front lines of that fight, and they still will work with us even amidst this. But the idea here, too, as you explained, if you thought about how many countries around the world that are committing just human rights abuses and atrocities, that the U.S. has decided for the interest of our country, it's better to work with them. And you would never see a statement like this, and they would look the other way. I mean, China's one example, but I mean, you could go through most of the world, and we don't really like the way those governments function. This is an actual real democracy with real elections and real rights for people who are Arabs and for people who are, again, of different backgrounds, different orientations. Free speech exists. Real freedom exists. And we punish these countries, and you know why, Jeff? It's to get the Europeans and those and I guess some Middle Eastern countries, though they've expressed little interest in this anymore. So it's mostly, I feel like it's Europe and the UN that the U.S. is trying to appease.
Right, and by the way, there's 100% right, Jordan, and it's no secret that there's a huge amount of activity in the state of Israel on cutting edge material, issues related to science that Americans benefit from every day of our lives. Guaranteed, every one of the people listening, watching today, in front of them, in the room with them, there's Israeli technologies that are making their lives better. The idea of undercutting America's interests and Americans' interests solely to pursue this agenda to say that the Jews don't belong in Judea, it's outrageous. There is not another identity on earth that America would treat, or the Biden administration or the Democrats would treat the way they're treating Jews.
No, and I think that they get away. There's an issue even arising, Jeff, at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum.
Unreal.
Where the Biden administration appoints board members through that. They also run the museum in Washington, D.C., which I would encourage everyone to visit. But they've appointed 2 board members who work with anti-Israel groups.
Well, actually, there are 2 that were reported, and I can also report to you a third because of research I've done in the past. They reported someone named Kimberly Emerson. It means Joe Biden appointed onto the Holocaust Museum Counsel a Kimberly Emerson who's associated with Human Rights Watch. Human Rights Watch is one of the most notoriously international anti-Semitic organizations on earth. They constantly talk about blood libel. They push blood libels, absolute lies about Israel is doing around the world, of course, under the banner of human rights. Similarly, the chairman, the National Board Chair of J Street, the anti-Israel group J Street, a famous group, who's also on the boards of the New Israel Fund and the Israel Policy Forum. By the way, the Israel Policy Forum, as far as I know, the only organization to actually testify against moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Joe Biden appointed them. In addition, he appointed someone named Michael Beals, who they call Biden's rabbi, who has used his pulpit, I found, to preach against Orthodox Jews in Jerusalem, to preach against the security walls, against the IDF, and basically accuse them of all kinds of atrocities and terror. So a consistent, progressive, anti-Israel message that folds over, as far as we're concerned, into anti-Semitism based on the accepted definition of anti-Semitism.
I mean, Jeff, here's the thing I think we have to point to, and this is important. We did some litigation with the Obama administration on this secret funding that was going on to fund, and we're looking at it again right now, where the United States was covertly funding organizations set up to try to topple the Netanyahu government the last time around. And then we found in the middle of this litigation, we find out that the United States sent $1 million to Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, the head of the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization. They don't like calling themselves that anymore, but that's what they are. And this was his son, got $1 million from the United States. So what we need to do on these appointments to the Holocaust Commission and boards for these museums is find out. We'll get some Freedom of Information Act requests out. And I know we have some other ones that we're working on right now. We have to expose this for what it is. It's anti-Semitism at its core.
100%. And the people in Israel see it and feel it. And that's why I'm back and forth now so much, because there's grave concern. This is not just some normal diplomatic process. It seems to be an aggressive agenda, almost a vendetta against the fact that there were the Abraham Accords, and all of a sudden the Jewish state is being normalized and accepted in the region. And it's like this administration seems dedicated to destroying that, to keeping the Jews pariahs everywhere. And they're using implementing it in every place they can, including the Holocaust Memorial Council. It's outrageous.
I mean, that's why I mentioned, Jeff, I appreciate you joining us on the broadcast today, but this idea, too, that they try to do this to make nice with the UN, but it's mostly European countries that are left doing this. I mean, most of the Gulf states in the Muslim world, including some North African countries, are happy. The last country that was actually negotiating a lot of it, and I still think is on the line, and if the right administration was in place that didn't demonize them, it would be Saudi Arabia next, which would be a whole change in how Israel would be able to operate, but the economic ties, even tourism ties, because the ability for Muslims to go visit their holy sites there in Israel, and Israel was willing to say, yes, we would love, we want your people to be able to come visit here. We want the economic relationship. And they said that they're no longer going to let the Palestinian issue be the stand in the way. But we know John Kerry, who's still in the administration, they all want it to stand in the way still. They won't let it go. Jeff's right on that. Even when the rest of the world is starting to let it go, the people who are actually there in the Middle East, they are still the State Department's position until that's handled. These countries shouldn't be doing working together.
Jeff, I want to go to you here. We only got 30 seconds left, but I think it's important to talk to our members. We are strategically located. Our office in Jerusalem is in the heart of Jerusalem. I mean, you look over the historic walls of Jerusalem. we are right there in the middle of this. There's few groups that are operating as significantly in Washington, D.C., Strasbourg, France, where the European Court of Human Rights is, and Jerusalem. It doesn't exist, and we're about to expand into other areas as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely pivotal. I can tell you that we've become a point of contact for members of the Knesset, nonstop, for government ministers. We're trying to understand what this apparent vendetta is against Israel. And so it's absolutely necessary that we're there. And I'm so glad that we have the office there. And I'm happy that I'm running back and forth. Someone has to do it, and we're the only ones doing it.
I'm glad that you're doing it. All right, folks, support the work of the ACLJ. You do that by going to aclj.org.